about applications of Python programming language. Before starting my discussion, I first would like to convey my gratitude to Dr. Shabnam Agarwal, Director of Mopani Institute of Management Studies, Dr. Shubhir Ghosh, Principal of Mopani Institute of Management Studies, Mrs. Kaveri Banerjee, HOD of BCA Department, and all of my colleagues of Mopani Institute of Management Studies and all of my dearest students for giving me this opportunity to discuss about this interesting topic. So first I am starting my discussions. First I am discussing about what is Python. I am asking to my students before starting the discussion, Python is a programming language. So first tell me, what is language? Any idea about language? Any idea about language? What is language? In real life, what is language? What is language?
Language is something through which we can express, communicate.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much. We can express anything. We can communicate with one another using the language. For computer system, we know that computer is a machine basically. It is not a human being. So when computer is working as per our request, as per our instruction, so we have to communicate with system. How? Using the programming languages, we can communicate with machine or with system. We can instruct the system to do anything. So, if we follow the generation of programming languages, just I am moving this slide. This is the Python programming. It is more popular than ever. And this is the actual level of abstraction. First level is the hardware level. This is the physical part of the system. All the hardwares. We have to assemble the hardwares first. Then second one is the machine language. Second one is it audible? Second one is the machine language. Machine language is the language through which we can communicate with our system. This is only the combination of zeros and ones. Why? Because computer system is the digital system, and for digital system we know that it follows the binary number system. When we are communicating with one another as human beings, we basically use the decimal number system. We know that decimal number system, that is 0 to 9, but for binary number system we have only 2 digits, 0 and 1, and machine understands only zeros and ones, combination of zeros and ones. But in the history of programming language, machine language was the low-level language, first generation programming language, and machine can understand this language, but it is very difficult to program. Programmer has to use the combination of zeros and ones, and when this number is too much high, too much large, then it is very difficult to debug the program. So do you have any idea about debugging the program? Debugging means removing the you have to remember it. This is bug means error, debug means remove the error. Okay, so it was very difficult to debug the errors because it was a combination of large number of zeros and ones. Then next generation language was the assembly language. Assembly language was too much simpler than the machine language programming, and assembly language program has one translator. It is called the assembler. Assembler is a software which is used for translating the code which is written by the programmer. Always we prefer to write anything using our language. English is the international language. That's why when we write any program, the source code, when we write any program, the program is called source code. Okay, when we write any program, this program is called source code. You have to learn, you have to remember this thing. And the translator is used for translating this source code to the machine code. Source code is converted to the machine code using any kind of translator, and translator is the software for assembly language programming. The translator was assembler. Next level language is the high level language. Always the human being invented the programming language as per their requirement. And next one is the high level programming languages. High level programming languages we use C language. Dear students, you have learned C language first. This is the example of high level language, and this language is much more user friendly than assembly language programming, and we are writing the program using English line statement. For C language programming, the translator is called the compiler. Compiler is a translator which is attached with the C language programming, and this compiler is used for translating the source code. Source code is written by us, written by the programmer, and it is converted to the machine code. Okay. And next, in the high level programming language, C, C++, Java, for the time being over the years, we see the different uses of different programming language, and today we are in the platform for the Python programming languages, and it is much more user friendly than ever. So our next graphical diagram, this is the level of abstraction. Level of abstraction is a level where it is not required to learn, or it is not required to know about the details of the software or details of the program. We have to learn only the syntax, how to write the program only. That's why we have written here level of abstraction, and for the time being, first machine language, then assembly language, then structured programming language, and next is the object-oriented programming language. If we follow the history of the programming languages, then we see that there are two categories of programming languages. One is called the procedural programming language, another one is called the object-oriented programming language. For procedural programming language, if the task is given, if the problem domain is given, then the entire problem will be divided into different subparts or procedures. But for the object-oriented programming language, we have to emphasize on data rather than procedure. Okay, we have to build a class. There are so many number of students in a class. That's why this is a class for BCA. This is a class for BBA. And all the class have some properties to identify this class. These properties are called the attributes, and this is the basic feature of object-oriented programming language. But when you learn the C programming language, then you have already noticed to solve any problem that we have to divide the entire problem domain into different categories or different subparts, sub-functions there. Okay. Next one is the level of abstraction. Just for your knowledge, I have written here. This is the quotation from John Gutter. This is the essence of abstraction for preserving information that is relevant in a given context and forgetting information that is irrelevant in that context. So we have to filter what is relevant and what is irrelevant. So when we use the particular language, the relevant part should be chosen and the irrelevant part just should be filtered out. Okay. This is the definition for the level of abstraction. It is very important for the generation of the programming language. And this is the definition. This allows people to work on systems without needing a granular understanding of those systems. This is the part. This is the basically environment for writing the Python program. I will show you what is the basic environment for writing. This is the basic environment where we can write our basic program. Basic Python programming language. First, I will explain what is data type, and for any kind of programming language, why data type is very much important. When we insert the instruction to the computer system, basically we have to solve some problems. The problem may be mathematical problem, the problem may be logical problem, and the problem will collect the input, process the input, and after that we are getting the output. That's why we have to learn about the data type, the data on which we can apply our process, apply our algorithm. Okay? Python data types are different types of data types. There are numeric data types, dictionary data types, Boolean data types, saved sequence types, and I think all of you know about the numeric data types, which is basically the integer data type, floating point data type. Do you have any idea about the integer data type? Integer data type. Integer data type. Floating point data type or integer data type. Do you have any idea? Tell me. Yes, 1, 2, 3, 4. We are dealing with so many numbers. 4, 5, 6, 250, whole numbers. These are the set of integers. And why it is called integer data type? Because it is basically a set of some value with some set of operations. Okay, when we are dealing with integer data type, we can perform any kind of arithmetic operations on this data. Floating point data type, you know, 2.5, 3.5, 2.55, 7.6, data. Okay? These are the basic features of Python. Why Python is very much popular? First one is called a high-level programming language. Obviously, I have already stated that Python programming language is the high-level programming language. Very simple language. This is open source. It follows the GUI programming. GUI means graphical user interface. It has large standard library. It is very expressive language. It is object-oriented programming language, and it is interpreted language. In my previous slide, when I discussed about the history of the programming language, I told one thing: for every programming language, one software is attached. This is the translator. Translator is basically translates the source code to the machine code. Source code means the language in which the programmer is writing anything. It is obviously the English-like statements, and machine code is the combination of zeros and ones which the machine can understand. Interpreter is also another example of the translator which can translate the source code to machine code, and Python is an interpreted programming language. This is cross-platform programming language. It can be used in various platforms. In Windows operating system, in Android operating system, in Mac operating system, iPhone also. We can use this platform, and for the students who have Python programming in your syllabus, you have already noticed that we are running the programs using the desktop as well as using our mobile phone. The mobile phone, basically we are using the mobile phone which are based on the Android operating system, and for the desktop we are using Windows operating system. So the Python programming is running for different kinds of operating system, and operating system technically it is termed as a platform. That's why Python is the cross-platform programming language. It is a scripting language. Why it is called scripting language? Basically, it is using the interpreter, and if a language has an interpreter to translate, then it is called the scripting language. Just I am showing one thing for the scripting language. See this one. This is the application environment. I am writing one thing in this platform. I want to print something. Just see, I am writing something in that environment. I am writing here one line print statement. I want to print some message. So when I want to print anything, I am writing this code. This one is the print function. Print function is used for printing anything. And after that, I am getting the output. This is one line. This is for one line. Okay? And after that, I will show you another thing. Suppose I am writing another thing which is a is equal to 10. Why I am writing this a is equal to 10? A is the variable. By using it, we can the interpreted language as well as it is the scripting language. When a language is used, the interpreter, then it is called the interpreted language. Okay? And another thing also, it is called the dynamic typed language. Dynamic typed language. I am just writing A is equal to 10. A is a variable which contains one numeric data. This is 10. I don't know what is the data type of 10, but the language is just taking the data type is 10, that means it is the integer data type. Okay, and after that, if you want to get the information of this data type, then we can write like this. Press enter. See, the data type is integer data type. Who don't know the language, please see that this is the data type for the A variable. I have given, you have all of you have learned the C programming language, but for C we have to declare the data type in float, char, etc., which are the basic data types. But here we have not mentioned any data type. I have just taken the variable A and entering the value 10. The language is taking the value as integer data type. Obviously 10 is the integer data type and it is printing that it is the integer data type. From this example, we can show that Python is dynamically typed language. It is not required to mention any data type. Second one is Python is interpreted language. This is the environment for the interpreter. We can write one line and after that when I press enter, the interpreter is translating the source code to the machine code and this language is using the interpreter for translating the source code to machine code. That's why this language is called the scripting language. Okay, these are the basic features. This person, this is a Dutch programmer, Guido van Rossum, creator of Python programming language. This is the programming history. See, the Python programming language was invented in the year of 1994, but at that time it was not much popular. Just it was created by that Dutch programmer, but from day by day, the language has been upgraded. Python 1.0, 1.5, 1.6 and so on. Today we are using the Python version 3.10. This is the history of this language. Completely open source software. If you want to download the software, if you want to install the software in your system, then go for www.python.org. Very simple to install. Just download the software from that website and then install the software in your system. That's why it is called the open source programming language. Object-oriented programming concept. It follows object-oriented programming concept. Object-oriented programming concept, any kind of object-oriented programming language emphasize on object. Okay, and when we just create a group with similar properties of objects, then we are able to create a class. And any object-oriented programming language has the basic features. The basic features are those: object, class, encapsulation, inheritance, and polymorphism. Encapsulation. Encapsulation means the properties of the particular object is not accessible by any other object of another class. So when we just make a group with similar properties of the object, then we are able to create a class, and only the members of the class, only the object of the class can access the properties of that particular class. This is the basic feature of object-oriented programming language. So Python is the object-oriented programming language. It follows the basic features of OOP concept. This is the incredible growth for the Python language. The red line, the red marked curve shows the growth of the Python language day by day. But one thing, I will show another graph. Actually, this graph has been drawn on basis of the review in the Stack Overflow. Stack Overflow is a particular platform where we can, the question answer platform, and from this platform we have got this review that the countries which are classified as the high level income countries, basically the growth of this language is higher than the countries which are low level, grouped as low level income rich countries. But the growth is obviously more than enough. Fastest growth of this language. This is basically the difference because we have used this platform day by day. So these are the differences for Python and C++. C++ is also an object-oriented programming language, high-level programming language, but C++ is basically the compiled language. It is not the dynamic type language. It is general purpose language, and always we have to declare the data types when we will write something. Always we have to declare the data type. Okay. This is the difference between Java and Python, because Java is also the object-oriented programming language, and there are different differences. Java is also statically typed language. See the differences. Next one, this is the important part for today's discussion. This is the application area of Python programming language. First one, it is very important for the software development purpose. First of all, I would like to say that it has inbuilt libraries, and when we write something, then we can import the libraries from online packages. We can import the libraries from online packages and we can write anything. That's why it is very much enriched with libraries. First of all, for software development, you see that there are some points which is called the SCONS. It is basically a tool for constructing the software. Another one is Buildbot, Apache Gum. These all tools are used for constructing the software. software. So it is very useful for the software development part. Another thing, it is also used for the web development and internet development. One module is very important module, Django. Django framework is used for the web development using the Python. Django framework is the inbuilt module and we can install this module from the online packages. And we don't need to write many more functions for constructing this application environment. We will just import the libraries and after that if we run the program, then we are able to construct the web development, internet development. Okay, so it is also important for the web and internet development. These websites are built using the Python. Social sites, see YouTube, Pinterest, Google. Google is also using the Python. Instagram. These websites are using the Python language. If you want to build any calculator, then we can use this platform for the GUI environment, graphical user interface. This I have written the program. This is not the workshop, that's why it is not possible to practice hands-on. That's why I am just showing you the program. This is the program. And if I run the program, then I am getting this module. This is the one example, simplest example for making the calculator in GUI based platform. Okay, and just I am writing one thing, 7 plus 8. You are getting the output also. This is the third application area of this language. Another thing I will show you, when we want to install any libraries, any modules from Python online package, we have to write some command here. This is the command prompt. This is the command prompt. Here we have to write one command for pip, P-I-P, pip. What is the full form of pip? What is the full form of pip? Python installer packages. Pip install any modules, just like that. We have to install, because when you install the Python software from www.python.org, all modules is not attached with that particular programming language software. You have to download all the modules from the online packages. How you can download? You have to use pip command, PIP, Python package installer. It is used for downloading the online packages and we have to run this. That's why it is very simple to learn. For desktop graphical user interface, there are some packages. See the names. These are used for desktop graphical user interface. Eevee is very useful. PySite, PyQt. These are very important modules, very common modules for creating any desktop GUI application environment. Next, our discussion part. This is the main discussion part, the uses of Python in data science. Data science, before starting the explanation why Python is useful for the data science, we have to learn what is data science first. Study of data. Data science means the study of data. It may be complex data. It may be a large number of data, huge data, that is called a big data. And this data basically is used for analysis part. In any area, in the marketing area, business area, in healthcare study, in anywhere, we are using this kind of data for our analysis and for our prediction, for our detection of any output. This study area is called the data science. Data science is a vast area. It is basically related to machine learning as well as artificial intelligence and as well as deep learning. These three terminologies are very much related to the data science of today. These are the basic steps where we work for the data science. It is important for statistical modeling. Any statistical analysis can be done using this language. We will implement this language for any kind of statistical modeling, for any kind of statistical computing. After getting the outputs from this statistical analysis, we will visualize the data. Visualize means this is the graphical representation of the data. And after that, we are getting the output. It is very, very useful for today's analysis. Why Python is used for data science? First of all, there are some basic features. One is called the parallel processing, another one is called data scraping, third one is called data visualization, and fourth one is called data computation. Python is able to do all the things. Parallel processing, where a large process is divided into some sub-processes and they are running parallel. Data scraping, that means data should be extracted for one computer from another computer, and it is collected from another resource, and after that it is used for this particular analysis. Data visualization, after scrapping of the data, we have to apply different kinds of statistical approach for analyzing the data, and after that the final output is received by the programmer. That's why Python is very much useful for the data science. We are working with a large number of data. It may be structured data, it may be unstructured data. It may be known data, it may be unknown data. That's why this data science has a feature to extract all the data from different sources. After that, classify the data. Which data are structured, which are unstructured, and ultimately the analysis is done on that kind of data, and thus we are getting the output. Output means the output is for forecasting anything. Output is for prediction of anything. Okay? Why use Python for the data science? Because it has the different kinds of features or different kinds of properties. One is called the learnability, large community, and resources. Obviously, it is enriched with a large number of libraries. That is why its resources are very much useful for any application for the data science. And these are the libraries, common libraries which are basically used for the data science. See the libraries, very important libraries itself. As for example, I am just saying SCIPY, it is a library. We have to install this library from this online package. It is used for any kind of scientific calculation, any kind of algebraic calculation, arithmetic calculation, etc. Matplotlib, very common for library for drawing any kind of graph using the data. And Seaborn is also another important package which is also used for plotting or drawing the graph using the data. Okay, so these are the different important libraries which are used for Python from day by day, which are used for analyzing all the data. And SCIKit Learn, this is also an important package. It is used for analyzing the data, and it is using the machine learning approach on that type of data. So these are the common Python libraries. Why Python is good for artificial intelligence, machine learning, and deep learning. First of all, we will just recall the features of this Python language. These are the basic features. You know that platform independent, alternative term is cross-platform. Another one is less code. We have to write less number of lines. Pre-built libraries, we just install the libraries from the online packages, and it is supported by community, supported by a large number of people. It is very easy to learn. That's why this language is very common, very popular for all the programmers, all the users. And do you know any idea about artificial intelligence? Artificial intelligence. That means we will force the system to think like human being. We will force the system to think like human being. This is called the artificial intelligence. The science and engineering of making intelligent machines. Machine will work. And it is defined as it is the science of getting machines to think and make decisions like humans. So after getting all the data, after collecting all the data, then we have to use the artificial intelligence technique to make That's why artificial intelligence is incorporated with the terminology data science. See, the machine learning. This is the machine learning approach. First, data is collected from the environment. Training the machine. After that, building a model. We have to use any model for getting the output. And then the predicting outcome. That means we are getting the output. Data science extracting all the data from the environment. We are using the machine learning approach and artificial intelligence approach to make some predictions on that data. That's why artificial intelligence, machine learning approach and data science are interrelated to each other. There are different categories of data for the data science where we will collect the data, which the procedure is called the data scraping, where we collect the data from the environment. The different categories of data we are getting. First of all, numeric data, numerical data or numeric data. There are two types. One is called the discrete data and another one is called the continuous data. Discrete data means the number of limited integers. That means how many students are present in the class. This is called the discrete data. How many cars are passing. This is called the discrete data. Limited integers. Continuous data. There are the numbers that are infinite value. It is called the continuous data. Another type of data, categorical data. Categorical data means what is the color of that particular car. This is the categorical data, and last one is the ordinal data, which is just in your sport card you are getting A, B, C, D like that. Either you have sport A grade or B grade or O grade, E grade like that. This is called the ordinal grade. So when we are getting the data from the environment, first categorize this data. Which data it is? Either it is numerical data or it is categorical data or it is ordinal data. If it is numerical data, then either it is discrete data or continuous data. We have to categorize first. This is the machine learning approach also. There are two types of learning. One is called the supervised learning and another one is called the unsupervised learning. See from the figure, first feature is extracted. That means you have collected the data from the environment, you have categorized the data, and every data has their features. So features should be extracted from that data. After that, we have to group the object, we have to classify it. Just I will give another example, it is interesting. There are two classes, Tom and Jerry, very popular cartoon icon. This is level data. We are getting the known data. When we are getting this type of data, we know that this is the character for Tom and this is the character for Jerry. Okay? And after that, we will just apply the machine learning approach. There are different approaches. Approaches means there are different kinds of algorithms we can use for classifying them. Because there are so many data. When you collect this data in your source data, there are so many data, large number of data, big data. That's why first objective is to classify the data first. Classification you level data, and after applying different approaches, we are able to classify. This is the class JD and this is the class Tom. Okay? You were listening my discussion. You are from BCA, you are from BBA, you are from hospital management. Miscellaneous students are there. But we know your classes. So level data, you are the level data, and after applying any approaches, we will be able to classify you. These students are for BCA students, these students are for BBA students, and these students are from hospital management students, like that. So this is called the supervised learning approach. When we work for the level data or known data, it is called the supervised learning approach. But suppose you are getting the data like that, completely unknown. Tom and Jerry class, but completely unknown data, unleveled data. So then we have to apply different approaches for classifying them, and ultimately we will be able to classify them as Tom class and Jerry class. There are two clusters. See, when you are working with the known data, in the output set we are getting class JD and class Tom. Just follow the figure, follow the picture. And another thing, when we are working with unleveled data, we are getting two clusters. The clusters are classified as features, but there is no name in the cluster. Just follow the previous picture. In the output level, you are working with the known data set. This is class JD and class Tom. You are getting like that. Because you know that how the data type is. What is the data? Level data, known data. You are working with this type of data. So when you are getting the output, then you are getting class Tom or class JD or like that. But when you are working with unknown data, then you are getting the clusters, different clusters. But there is no name here. Just follow it. There is no name here, but we are able to classify the unknown data. This procedure is called the unsupervised learning approach of machine learning. Okay? Machine learning is basically the approach to convert the machine to behave like human beings. It will predict something, it will make the decision. Okay? Artificial intelligence is the procedure through which we will get the system is like a human being. It will decide something, it will predict something like human being. We will not talk about something, but system will talk about something. Right? But for getting this type of decision, we have to apply the machine learning approach. What are the different types of approach? There are two types of approaches. One is called the supervised, another one is called the unsupervised. For supervised learning, you are getting the information like that, level data, known data. So when you get the output like that, you are getting different classes. Okay? But when the data is completely unknown for the machine, then it will apply unsupervised learning approach, and it is completely able to classify the different classes. Here there are different problems which may be solved by machine learning approaches. First one is called the regression problem. Second one is called classification problem. Machine learning, artificial intelligence is not only the part of the computer science, it is basically used for the big data analysis. Big data analysis is used in anywhere for business automation, for healthcare industries, and for all the areas. Okay. So regression, one method, one problem is called the regression problem. When we want to predict the condition for the stock market, you know about the stock market prediction. Stock market prediction. This is called the problem. It can be solved by machine learning approaches, and it is used by regression analysis. Okay, how the prediction of the stock market is done? We have to apply the approaches for the regression analysis. There are different kinds of regression, linear regression, and other types of regression. And regression analysis, by using the regression analysis, we are able to predict the stock market. Classification. Classification is also very useful. This is also the supervised learning. Very good example is which mails we are getting so many number of emails we are getting. Okay, some mails are spam mails. The spam mails may be classified using this methodology. This is called a classification problem. Okay. Another thing is clustering, and classification is very important nowadays. Today is the working opportunity is very big, and in agriculture also the classification is very useful, because in the agriculture department there are so many number of fruits, vegetables, leaves, plants, flowers, etc. The research work is on that basis that they just take the photographs or video from that type of fruits or vegetables and other plants. And after that they are wanting to classify which fruits are rotten and which fruits are fresh. Which leaves are distorted, which leaves are fresh. Just there are different kinds of approach which is called the SVM approach, support vector machine. It is used for classifying this type of just classifying this rotten one or fresh vegetable or fruits or flowers. And this is called the smart agriculture. Okay, and here we are using the logistic regression. Another one is called the clustering. Clustering is another approach, and it is obviously the unsupervised learning. The algorithm is K-means algorithm, and it is a good example is the transactions. Suppose some fraudulent transactions. These transactions may be classified using this type of approach, and it is completely unsupervised learning, because we don't know when our system is attacked by someone. If it is any kind of cyber attack, first of all we don't know who is attacking our system. That's why it is called the unsupervised learning. And this is just the relationship between the artificial intelligence, machine learning, and the deep learning approach. Deep learning is the subset of the artificial intelligence, and deep learning, machine learning, and artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence is superset, and after that we are using the machine learning approaches, and last deep learning approaches, so that the machine can think like human being. That's why. Just the last part of our discussion, it is Python in modern marketing strategy. You know that we are using the digital marketing procedure for any kind of promotion, for automation is very automation, we are using the Python programming language. What are the different categories of business automation? Just see. For business process, we are using this technology for doing any repetitive task. That's why it is called the automation. Automatically, repeats automatically. It will send automatic mails to the customer. It will send automatic SMS to the customer. So that's why it is called the procedure is called the automation. There are different kinds of business automation here. Basic automation, process automation, advanced automation and intelligence automation. For advanced automation and intelligent automation, we are using the artificial intelligence technique. Suppose you are working with some websites. And one option is there like we are chatting with the customer service. Okay, there are some chats. Hello, friends, how are you? How can I help for you? You are getting this kind of message from that website. And then you can type anything, any query, and you are getting the answers. This is the automatic procedure. This is the artificial intelligence technique to support the customers for any kind of business purpose, and it is very useful for the digital marketing strategy also. So these are the different kinds of processes which are used for the business automation. See the processes. First of all, we can automate the social media posts. Secondly, we can automate the email marketing campaigns. We are getting so many emails from Zomato or Swiggy in Delhi. This is also a campaign, marketing campaign. Okay. Once we have ordered some food from Zomato or Swiggy, then we are getting some repeated mails from Zomato or Swiggy on daily basis. This is also the marketing approach that we are here for to support. Okay. Automate the website tasks. Different tasks for the e-commerce sites. After sending all the SMS or the emails for their marketing campaigns, they are able to analyze the data. What is the number of customers who are interested, who are not interested? Is there any grievance for that particular product like that? After getting all the information, they are using the different kinds of analysis approach, and ultimately they are able to market it properly to their product. Okay, so it is very, very useful for the business automation also. So this is my last references from where we are getting the so much references. It is not possible to write all the references in the one slide. That's why I given some important